Module 26, the traveling athlete. What is jet lag? Jet lag happens when we rapidly traverse time zones. So this can lead to fatigue, day-night cycle disturbances, sleeping difficulties as a result of our days and nights being mixed up, mood disturbances, and bowel disturbances, all of which can spell decreases in performance for the athlete. Acclimatization will take about a day per time zone traverse, so that's something that we want to keep in mind and plan ahead if we know that we have competitions that involve traveling, particularly going eastward. That becomes more problematic and some of these symptoms may occur, so jet lag is more likely to happen. It may actually take 3 time zones to see a significant decrease in performance, so that's another consideration here. And of course, westbound travel, as I mentioned earlier, is easier than eastbound travel in this regard. Anytime you're going forward in time, you're going to end up losing a night's sleep or even a couple of nights' sleep, and so that, of course, needs to be factored into the traveling schedule. What is jet stress? Well, jet stress is basically anything that happens along your trip that is out of your control and that causes you stress. So you lose your flight, or the flight is canceled, or there are mechanical problems with the aircraft. All of these things can cause jet stress. What are some dietary strategies to prevent jet lag? Well, the first of which here is pre-planning. So adapting a meal and a snack time to the destination before and during the flight, so that you are practicing the consumption of snacks and your meals based on the time zone that you are going to be residing in for several weeks to however long you're going to be staying there. A higher carbohydrate, a low protein diet may actually induce drowsiness, so you may be able to sleep on the aircraft. We can also increase our fluid intake. Hypohydration is a big problem when we travel, and constipation is probably one of the most largely complained about symptoms that athletes will have. So sipping water continuously will help prevent some of these issues with constipation and hypohydration. We want to make sure that we avoid beverages, which are going to act as diuretics, and prearrange our meals that provide carbohydrate and that are low in fat on the plane. Sometimes you can actually request meals on an aircraft and have them ready and tailored to however you want to eat. So that's something that you want to consider here. Packing portable high carbohydrate snacks, which include fruits, are a great way to maintain the high carbohydrate intake. And we also want to try and keep busy during the flight if we're not tired, to prevent boredom eating. That can also be a problem. We want to adapt regular meal and snack patterns upon arrival and sustain a higher fluid intake until the athlete is well hydrated or euhydrated. For nausea and emesis, what we can do is withhold solid food in the short term, but maintain fluid intake across the board. So reducing food intake is okay, but maintaining that fluid intake is really, really important. Sipping on a sports drink is a great alternative to this. We do want to avoid the soft drinks and the fruit juices, which can serve to dehydrate us and make us, of course, ill. Avoid fatty foods and high sugary foods. Again, this can increase the amount of nausea or emesis or diarrhea that we may have or experience. We want to consume smaller, frequent meals, things like dry crackers and dry toast at first, then to a light to low fat meals as tolerated can be introduced as time goes on. And we want to try and elevate the head and eat slowly. Take our time. There's no rush. As far as diarrhea is concerned, if we just follow the guidelines listed for nausea and emesis, that will help prevent some of the issues with diarrhea. Some of the foods that are associated with increased occurrence of diarrhea include milk, so we can try to avoid milk, and caffeinated drinks, as well as soft drinks, fruit juice, and other foods that the athlete will experience abdominal cramping with. Avoiding gaseous drinks and foods that cause flatulence is also an area to consider as well. What illnesses are of concern when traveling? Well, the biggest concern is going to be the fecal-oral route, as well as the insect vectors transmitting some sort of antigen. The most common one is going to be traveler's diarrhea, also known as Montezuma's revenge. About 20 to 50% of traveling passengers will experience this, and it's usually stemming from travel to developing countries and not industrialized nations like the United States. It's caused by typically non-viral pathogens. E. coli is one, Salmonella, Shigella, Campylobacter, and Giardia lamblia are all sources of travelers' diarrhea. And where do we get these from? Well, contaminated food, water, other people, poor sanitary conditions that we're staying in, poor personal and food hygiene practices as well. Treatment for this includes basically a bland diet and just try to increase water intake. Of course, if you're relying on tap water, you want to boil that for 5 minutes so that you don't run into the issue of introducing more of the antigen that caused the problem in the first place. How do I prevent nutrition-related illnesses when traveling overseas? Well, rule number 1 here that we should be doing anyhow, washing hands frequently, at least 30 seconds under warm water, and using a clean towel or air dryer. If local water is unsafe, then of course, as we mentioned earlier, we want to boil the drinking water. This is where water bottles actually can be a nice, safe alternative. So purchasing a bottle that's sealed, as long as the source is clean, then you're good to go and you shouldn't have any issues. Avoiding ice cubes. That could be a problem because if the contamination source is water and we're using water to make ice cubes, then that antigen could be present in the ice cube. We want to try and avoid eating salads because typically salads are washed in the tap water or even raw vegetables. Unless you know that the drinking water is absolutely safe, then this should be avoided. Avoiding raw foods like oysters and shellfish and raw fish. Avoid purchasing foods from local stalls and markets where hygiene might be poor. Even though this is a fun thing to do and experience new food items, we do want to be cautious because we don't want to be ill and run into the issue of where we can't compete and be successful at our sport. We want to look for food that is well cooked and served hot, not warm. Food should come out piping hot. You need that heat in order to kill any antigen that's present in food. That reduces the risk of a foodborne illness. Avoiding the buffet is always a good idea. Buffets are basically a great way to transmit all kinds of antigens out there, simply because if the temperatures in that buffet are not regulated properly, then it could be a breeding grounds for antigens. So be on the lookout for the buffet. You want to order cooked to order rather than reheated food, so making sure that your food is coming out from scratch and not something that's been laying around for a while.